What's up guys, Chris here from D.va Dubs. Today, Blizzard announced some new PTR patch notes and I want to take a few minutes to go over them with you, as well as some recent Overwatch news that has come out this week. We're going to start with this. 2 days ago, Overwatch developer Josh No, the same guy who made the character Sigma, posted this onto the forums. Dropping by with a fun fact, looking at GM players for the current patch 1.43, Genji and Soldier 76 are number 6 and number 7 in terms of win rate for damage heroes out of 16 total. They're not doing quite as poorly as the general community sentiment would imply. Game balance perceptions and opinions are often repeated and perpetuated enough that they start to become accepted as fact by many players. We should also remember that things like win rates and hero power, effectiveness can fluctuate significantly depending on the player's skill level. If someone complains that Reaper is too strong and another says that Reaper is too weak, they could both be correct for their current skill level. When making balance changes, we typically look at the high-end potential of player skill for a hero, but also try to keep in mind if a given change would be a significant detriment to the overall gameplay experience in lower skill brackets and attempt to find a better solution if so. I think in general, being wary of extreme power creep is a valid and healthy concern if it's causing gameplay to become too wildly distorted from the core experience. I don't feel that we're currently anywhere close to that with the live game. Now, I won't lie, this kind of set the community on fire, spawning way too much hate speech against the poor Josh. But I can't lie, I understand where they're coming from. The TLDR of what he said is basically, you are wrong, there is no power creep, and the stats say the game is playing just fine. Now, if you've actually played Overwatch in the last 6 months, you know that power creep is alive and well, and the game feels very different than it did at launch. In response to this, the actual best Overwatch strategy tool, StatBanana, launched a poll to see if the community agreed with what Josh said. They asked what heroes, in the community's opinion, needed a nerf the most. As you can guess, the community did not agree with Josh. Mei came in first place with a whopping 17%, followed by Baptiste in second with 15%. Third, fourth, and fifth were Hanzo, Orisa, and Sigma. This doesn't surprise me at all based on the feelings I've gotten personally from the current live patch on Overwatch right now. Fortunately, yesterday, Josh released a follow-up statement to all the fallout, amending what he initially said. Yes, pick rates are definitely important to consider when trying to interpret win rates. The win rates I'm looking at are from unmirrored competitive ladder stats, specifically for PC players on patch 1.43 at the GM plus MMR range, meaning games where the hero is not being actively played on both teams. We don't balance solely off of stats anyway, but they help inform us when something could be really out of whack or can give us a slightly more unbiased lens when trying to identify the root causes of gameplay issues. Stats don't do a great job of telling us subjective things like how fun something is, player feedback does. We can try to infer a little bit of that from pick rate, but there are too many competing factors. The most common feedback I've been reading recently is that Baptiste and Mei are very overpowered. There are some upcoming changes to those two as well, stay tuned. And Genji Soldier are clearly the weakest heroes. When I looked into the current patch stats, Mei and Genji are both very middle of the pack for GM, where I would normally expect players who would adhere more closely to the meta. There's only about 8 heroes with higher pick rates than Mei and Genji. Soldier pick rate is low, coming in at slightly less than half of Genji's, and is on par with Ashe for both pick and win rate. One of the perceived strongest and one of the perceived weakest heroes have nearly identical pick rate and win rate. I found this personally very interesting and wanted to share. My post above was intending to get people to consider that this data, while not absolute or conclusive of anything on its own, may suggest off-meta heroes are much more viable on the competitive ladder than players tend to expect, even at the highest levels. Professional play is likely another story. Now this has been well received, and I'm stoked that he had the brass tacks to post again, clarifying what he meant by his original post. Good on you, Josh, for getting this out there. Alright, with that out of the way, let's get into today's PTR patch notes. First, there's some changes to custom games in the data center preference. Basically, this just means the creator gets to choose who hosts the game to reduce latency times. This should impact people who are playing together from all over the world to have a little bit smoother experience. For the hero changes, 6 heroes were either buffed or nerfed. First, Baptiste. After recently teasing the changes coming up, Blizzard has followed up quickly on their word. His immortality's uptime has been reduced from 8 seconds down to 5. This is great because at high levels, most Baptistes have gotten very good at hiding the invulnerability disc behind cover, essentially making it impossible for your team to kill for 8 seconds. Honestly, this can single-handedly end a team fight, especially if your team is running some kind of dive comp. In addition, the cooldown on invulnerability has also been increased from 20 to 25 seconds. This takes away some of Baptiste's ability to throw his disc down multiple times in the same team fight. I don't think it's enough, but it's a good start, and we know that Blizzard likes to introduce these game-changing patches slowly. It's much easier to break a game through a patch than it is to fix it. Finally, his ult now takes 20% more charge. Thank God. If you're healing your team correctly in the live version of the game, you can charge Baptiste's ult in only 10 seconds. So, hey, at least it's going to be 12 now, right? Next up is Mei. Mei's endothermic blaster, or primary weapon, slowing effect now reduces enemy movement speed from 20 to 70%, which is a decrease from 30 to 90%. Though we don't have enough information to see exactly what this will do to her, we can safely assume that she will be much less devastating than she is now, just by casually glossing over you once with her endothermic blaster. In addition, her slowing effect duration has been reduced from 1.5 seconds down to 1 second. If you've played Wrecking Ball at all recently, you know how completely destroyed you get when the other team runs a Mei. Though she will still be powerful, this will help negate the immediate slow effect you get when she gets near. In my opinion, this is the most needed change in the game of Overwatch today. Thank you, Jeff. On to d.va. d.va's booster cooldown was decreased from 5 down to 3 seconds. d.va has had one of the worst win rates by far since the collapse of GOATs. She desperately needed a change like this, and while I don't think it's going to be enough, it's a great start. When played correctly after this buff, I think she's going to feel a lot more similar to a Wrecking Ball, and that she can get in and out of fights much more quickly to secure a pick. Her ability to dive high ground now will also be second to none. A 3-second cooldown can feel like nothing in the fast-paced game of Overwatch. Lastly, this should make her that much more fun to play. Some of the most fun heroes to play right now are the higher mobility heroes. d.va's already a blast to play, so this should just make her that much better. Next up is Orisa. Fortify's damage reduction was reduced from 50% down to 40%. Orisa is a quintessential part of the double shield meta running right now, but it's not really because of her shield. In the live games, she's super hard to kill. This is a step in the right direction, but I don't think this is going to do enough to nerf her out of the meta. Her halt ability remains unchanged, which I think is the strongest part of her kit, and her ult is a total game changer. I think this will be one of the nerfs that will need a little more work before she's completely balanced. Okay, onto Hanzo. Hanzo's primary fire maximum projectile speed has been reduced from 125 down to 110. Now, this was a little confusing at first because we don't have all the data of how his arrow works, but since yet another post by our friend Josh No, we've learned that this is just a simple reversion back to Hanzo's projectile speed when the game launched. Hanzo has been tragically overpowered for quite some time now, with his significant burst and just overall damage output. Though I think he will need nerfing beyond this, it's a good start. This will make him worse in the role as a long-distance sniper, though his tank-busting capabilities are going to remain mostly unchanged. Lastly, Doomfist. Doomfist's uppercut recovery time has been increased from 0.2 seconds up to 0.5 seconds. Recovery time is the amount of time that he will have to idly sit there after uppercutting you before he can perform any actions. With this change, now Doomfist only has a 0.1 second advantage over the person he's uppercutting to try and dish out some damage before they can respond. This is a significant nerf to his ability to dive and single out enemy targets, especially if the victim's team is able to respond quickly enough. I don't think this is going to break Doomfist at all, but it will feel very sluggish after uppercutting compared to what it is currently in the live game. Now that's all the notes we have to work with today. Leave a comment below to let us know what you think of the changes and whether it was too much or not enough. I'm happy with the changes and can't wait until they roll into the live game. Thanks for watching this. Please like and subscribe if you liked the content. As always, thanks for hanging out in the D-pad.
Bye.